everyone, today we're going to talk about adding integers, and we're going to start with some vocabulary. Opposites are two numbers that are the same distance from zero, but they're on opposite sides of zero when you're looking at a number line. An example of that would be 5 and negative 5. Additive inverse is just another word for opposite. When you're adding an integer and its additive inverse, you're getting a sum of 0. So 5 and negative 5 will give you a grand total of 0. A couple of rules for adding integers. These are your key ideas when it comes to adding. So if you're adding integers with the same sign, like you're adding two positives, or maybe you're adding two negatives, you always want to add the absolute value of the integers. You're looking at the numbers without the sign and adding those numbers. Then, for your answer, you're using the common sign. So in this case, I have two positives. The absolute value of 6 is 6 and 2 is 2 for a grand total of 8. And since they're positive, my answer is positive. Here I'm adding negative 6 and negative 2. If I add the absolute values of these numbers, I'm adding 6 and 2 for 8. But since both of these values were negative, I'm going to use that common sign in my answer, and my answer is negative 8. If I'm adding integers with different signs, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the smaller absolute value from the greater absolute value. Then, when I go to my answer, I'm going to use the sign of whichever integer in the problem had the greater absolute value. So in this case, negative 6 plus 2, I ignore the signs, I'm looking at the absolute values, 6 and 2, and I'm subtracting them to get 4. Then I go back to my problem, and since 6 had the greater absolute value and 6 was negative, my answer becomes negative, negative 4. And you can see here I have more negatives in this problem than positives, so when I add them together, I'm going to have more negatives. In this case, 6 plus negative 2, I'm still going to subtract the absolute values. 6 and 2 subtracted give me 4. But in this case, 6, the number with the greater absolute value, is positive, therefore there's more positives in the problem. My answer is positive 4. And finally, adding opposites. When you add opposites, the answer will always be 0. So negative 6 plus 6 is 0. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Anytime you're adding two opposite numbers, you get 0. And here's our last problem. The list shows 4 bank account transactions in August, and they're asking us to find the change in the account. So I'm being asked to here add multiple values. So I've got 4 values. A withdrawal is when you're taking money out of your account, and therefore you see the negative in front of those values. And a deposit is when you're putting money into your account. So when I'm adding, I can add in any order I like. So I'm going to choose to add the negatives together first. So negative 40 and negative 45 give me a grand total of negative 85. So during this month of August, I've withdrawn $85 from my account. Now I'm going to add the deposits together. 50 and 75 give me a grand total of 125. Lastly, I have to combine my deposits and withdrawals. So 125 plus negative 85 is going to result in a positive answer because I can see 125 is larger than 85, and this 125 has a positive value. So I'm going to have a positive answer, but I have to do 125 subtract 85 to get that value. So in this case, I have 40 as my total. So at the end of the month, my account has a balance of $40.